In today's video, we continue our NHL offseason plan series. We're looking at the fifth-ranked team from the regular season and the runners-up in the Western Conference Final, the Dallas Stars. They certainly had an interesting ending to their season. Today, we're going to analyze what we should expect from them between trades as well as free agency and, obviously a new coach and what they're going to do with the draft. All their expectations will be reviewed coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking at the Dallas Stars and analyzing their off-season plans. Obviously, the Dallas Stars had a very interesting kind of end to their season here. They're really, really good regular season, pretty solid playoff run, falling short in the Western Conference Final to the Edmonton Oilers, but it was really not so much that they lost. It was more so how it ended and all the kind of chain reaction of events it kind of set off. So we'll get into that here in just a moment. But first, in case you're new to this series, we're essentially going to recap last year. We're going to look at some team results, individual results, take a look at how the team changed, which was significant throughout the year. Obviously, we'll talk about those playoffs and the ending, and we're going to get into the cap space and what they have for internal contracts, trades, draft, etc. all here in the next few minutes, so stay tuned for all of that. First, let's recap last year's regular season, and we'll talk about the playoffs as well. The Dallas Stars finished with a record of 50 wins, 26 losses, and 6 overtime losses for 106 points. It's a really solid season. Unfortunately, though, as good as that was, they actually took a step back from the year before. The last year they had 113 points and had 52 wins, picking up 7 more points along the way. But ultimately, I think their division was probably maybe a little bit more balanced this year, and the Stars is still nothing to really be upset about. The only thing that I guess maybe could have been better would have been maybe getting into first place and winning the division, getting a maybe different matchup, but ultimately they made it to the Western Final, which probably wouldn't have changed too much anyway as far as who their opponent was. Throughout the year, they scored 275 goals, which was third highest in the league. Can't complain about that. Goals against was 222. That was the 6th best, so again, really good result. Power play was 22%. Still a good result, but just a little bit below league average at 17th best in the league. And the penalty kill was one of the best as well, 82%, 4th best. So really, there's not a whole lot to complain about. The power play for a top-ranking team maybe could have been a little bit better, but not really anything too drastic. They were a pretty well-balanced team, kind of good in all areas. Really wasn't a lot that stood out as being a major weakness in that sense, breaking down the stats at least. But obviously they're a team that's made it to the Western Conference Final 3 consecutive years now and fallen short and couldn't get over the hump to get to the Stanley Cup Final. Looking at their goaltenders for the regular season, Jake Ottinger is one of the better goalies around the NHL. 36 wins, 18 losses, 4 overtime losses, 2.59 goals against average and a .909 save percentage, so pretty solid for him. Casey DeSmith, pretty decent backup, record of 14-8-2, had the same goals against, 259 and a .915 save percentage. So again, goaltending was pretty good for Dallas, pretty consistently throughout the season. Of course, their leading point getters was Rantanen with 88 points, Duchesne with 82, and of course, a lot of Rantanen's points came before the trade. So Duchesne technically had the most points in a Stars uniform with 82. Jason Robertson with 80. Wyatt Johnston had 71, and Rupe Hintz with 67. So, of course, like I said, this team saw some pretty significant change. Obviously, we saw Mikko Rantanen traded twice this year, which was not something we even expected to see once, but let alone twice. Of course, goes to Carolina, wasn't happy, didn't want to sign, got flipped again, ends up in Dallas on a long-term deal. So obviously they get this huge trade near the deadline, picks up Mikko Rantanen, where he had 18 points in 20 regular season games, 22 points in 18 games in the playoffs. Obviously Rantanen will be a big piece of this team's future, right? The only thing is looking at his numbers, you think 22 points in 18 playoff games. What a beast. He did really well. You know what, though? All in all, I don't think maybe I'm a minority here, but I don't think Mikko Rantanen really had that great of a playoff. A lot of his points came in a small number of games. So 22 points in 18 games, but if you break it down, there was a 5-game stretch between the tail end of the series against Colorado and the beginning of the Winnipeg Jets series, where he had 17 points in 5 games, where he just went like bananas there and just went on fire, right? Multiple hat tricks, a lot of assists, and just went crazy. But the other 13 games he played in the playoffs, he had five assists, 0 goals. So as much as the 22 points in 18 games in the playoffs looks good, there's a lot of really skewed inconsistencies there. So they're going to need him to be more consistent and show up on a nightly basis if he's going to have that playoff success like he did with the Avalanche. So all in all, they also picked up Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci. Had a pretty big trade deadline. They went all in, thought they could get to the final, had a shot to win the Stanley Cup, and realistically, they were not far off, and they really did have a good shot. Now, of course, the ending, like I said, to how they lost the Edmonton series was pretty epic and not something a lot of us really saw coming, which results in Pete DeBoer, the head coach, after 3 years being in the conference final every year, being fired. Obviously, in the final game against Edmonton, the Dallas Stars got off to a horrible start. Absolutely horrendous start, and gave up a couple of goals really early, and he calls timeout to try to settle his team down. Now, Ottinger, there's an argument to be made whether or not he was really at fault there. Ottinger comes over for the timeout, starts heading back to the net, because he doesn't know he's getting pulled, and then DeBoer has to yell at him, basically embarrasses him. You could tell Ottinger was ticked, did not want to come out, didn't think it was right. And usually you see a timeout or a goalie change to kind of spark your team. You don't usually use both at the same time. It just seemed like just bad time. And then a lot of people were like, okay, and myself included, I was like, okay, well, they're going to try to settle the team down, and they're going to put Otter back in for the second period. Nope. Ottinger stays on the bench the rest of the game. They end up losing, season over. And then, to make matters worse, DeBoer goes into his post-game media and doubles down. And not only it defends his pulling of Ottinger, but goes on to talk about how bad he's been against the Oilers, not only in that series, but in the year before as well. And just basically saying he never beats Edmonton. His record against them has been horse shit. And just basically throws him under the bus, which I thought was just mind-blowingly bad. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this guy's largely responsible for why and how you got there. And could he have been better? Maybe, but a lot of your other guys could have been better too. And he signed to a lucrative long-term deal. You know he's going to be there longer than you. Why are you doing this? Do you want to get fired? It makes you wonder, does he feel frustrated, think, geez, maybe I need to go here? I mean, you could have just resigned. You don't have to try to get yourself fired. Anyways, absolutely crazy how everything kind of blew up there, and just the aftermath of that loss was just beyond crazy. So DeBoer's out as of the recording of this video. They do not have a new head coach yet. We'll get into that here in a moment, but obviously that's still something that's pending. The Dallas Stars have made a few moves already in the offseason. We'll get into that here in a second. Their cap space sits right around $5 million. Obviously, they've made actually a little bit less than that now, because that number has been changing here in the last couple of days because of the moves that they've made. Obviously, they started getting some signings done and some trades before I got a chance to get this video posted. So let's jump ahead here and look at their contracts, their internal contracts. They had a couple of RFAs that they needed to get signed, and they've already done so. But right now, technically, no more RFAs left. They've already signed Maverick Bourque on a 1-year deal at $950,000. They also signed Nils Lundqvist $1.25 million as well, or $1.25 million. So they've got their 2 RFA guys already looked after. Now, on the UFA side, they would have had Matt Duchene, but they got him looked after as well, signing a 4-year deal at $4.5 million. That's a pretty sweet team-friendly deal for 82 points. But he's also still getting paid for the next number of years for the Nashville Predators on his buyout, which allows him to kind of take a little bit of a discount and pass that on to the team here. He's still going to make, I think, over the course of that 4-year deal that he's going to get with Dallas now, the payout from the Nashville Predators, I think the total over the 4 years is around like $10 or $11 million or something like that he's still going to be paid out. So if you think about it, it's like the equivalent of him basically making, around 7 or something like that, 6.5, 7 per year. So, really, like I said, he's getting paid more than Dallas is paying him, which is helpful. And he could have still demanded more money and gotten it, but he really wants to be there, likes being in Dallas. He said he wanted term. This time was important to him, and he gets it by giving them a good deal because of the buyout cash. So Duchesne's looked after, but they have captain Jamie Benn, Evgeny Dadonov, Mikhail Granlund, Colin Blackwell, Cody Ceci, and Brendan Smith, also UFAs. The belief is Jamie Benn will be back. I'm not sure how cheap of a discounted deal he's going to give them, but it's expected he will. The other guys, it's kind of difficult to say. Good chance that none of them are back. I mean, it's possible, but unlikely. I know the Stars have interest to keep Granlund. It doesn't seem like it's going to be possible at this point. As far as players that are eligible for extensions this year, this offseason, you're looking at mainly Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson, the big ones. The belief is that they're going to have some extension talks with Robertson. He's been mentioned a lot in trade rumors, which we'll get into here as well. But for right now, he is eligible for an extension, as is Thomas Harley. Now, the top questions facing this franchise, but we'll get into the expectations here on change. Obviously, clearing space to bring back some of their UFAs, and they've already started that process. They already traded Mason Marchment, so he's already gone. They basically gave Marchment or Duchesne the same money Marchment was making. So basically, they just flipped that out. So Marchment goes, Duchesne gets his money. They were back to the same number of. So they were right around $5 million cap space, or just shy of it, 496. Marchment goes, Duchesne gets his money, back to square one, and then they've signed Lundqvist and Bork, which would combine add up to $2 million. So in theory, they're down to about $3 million right now. But like I said, some of those contracts are guys who could go to the minors or be on waivers or whatnot. So there's ways to create a little extra space within that. Obviously, like I said, within Jamie Benn and Mikhail Granlund or the other guys they'd like to bring back, I don't think that's going to be possible for Granlund. Right now, they had, between Marchment and the two defensemen who did not play much in the playoffs, Dumba and Lyubushkin, they had over $11.5 million tied up between all three of those players. They've already moved Marchment. The belief is that there is going to be a push to move Dumba here, and they will consider a buyout if they can't find a taker. But I've seen some speculation that Lyubushkin might be expected to stay. So we'll see about that. So that's not going to open up as much space. But if they're, that would take them from 3 upwards of around 6. So, $6 million. Then you've got the Jason Robertson rumors. What's going on there is they need space. He needs a new contract, and it sounds like the plan here is going to be for them to kind of talk extensions, see where he and his agent are at, and then make a decision if that's something they feel comfortable doing or if they'll pursue a trade. But I don't think that a Jason Robertson trade is likely, not early on. We'll see, but I think it's not really their first choice here. So I'm guessing that he probably doesn't go unless a crazy offer comes along that they feel like they just can't give up. Obviously, they have to hire a new head coach. That's another expectation. Some speculation it could be a number of people internally, whether it be Nasreddine or Neil Graham. They're both in the mix. I know it appears as though Glenn Gulletson from the Oilers, a longtime assistant coach, and obviously former head coach in Dallas as well quite a while ago, is a candidate too. I'm not sure who else is out there, but there's definitely going to be a number of people that they consider here. I would think before they get too far into the draft and free agency, maybe we'll get a decision here sometime this week. It's not quite clear though. At the draft, they don't have a first or a second rounder. They do have a third, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So they're obviously missing a first, second, and fourth round pick. If they did move Jason Robertson, I would suspect they would want to recoup some draft capital. That was kind of the premise around the early rumors, is that they don't really want to get worse, obviously, but they do need to kind of recoup some draft capital, get some cap flexibility, maybe bring in another player that's maybe not going to give them maybe not. You can't really just replace Jason Robertson, but another productive player for a cheaper contract. So maybe somebody, if they can find somebody who's making $4 or $5 million, that could give them something close, even if it's 60, 70 points. That it's still not easy to find. So we'll see about that. I don't really expect them to be too active in free agency just because of their lack of cap space. At this point, they've got their goaltending set. Their D-core is mostly set. The forward group is the area where you could see some, especially within the depth, a few changes, but they're going to have to see what they can do in a bargain basement type of approach. So if they do anything in free agency, it won't be anything big. It's probably going to be more so just a few cheaper depth options if they can. But obviously, like I said, they're going to continue to clear space with Dumba being the main candidate. Now that Marchment's already gone. A Robertson trade is possible, but I'm not sure we're going to see that. And then we'll see what they do. They'll probably bring back Jamie Benn. And otherwise, you're going to see largely the same group. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of change here. They'll have a full year of Rantanen. That'll make a difference, and we'll kind of see what happens. But otherwise, it's going to be a lot of the same next year for the Dallas Stars. But let me know your thoughts and expectations for the Stars in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.